Hi there everybody, how are you doing? We're now live on Facebook.
Hello. Hi.
How's the weather today for you guys?
Nice and sunny down here.
Sunny, good washing day today.
Wet, so yeah, you might be able to hear the rain. It's very heavy at the moment, but that's Manchester for you.
Absolutely, yeah. Same here, it is grey and miserable, but hopefully today we can talk about something a little bit more cheery than the mixture of weather across the UK. So we're going to be talking about probably one of our favourite subjects, food. So it's going to be lots of pictures, so be prepared. If you haven't got a snack to hand, you might want to get one. It's going to be very, very tempting, so get prepared. We'll kind of start off. Sarah, do you want to kind of introduce what we're going to be talking about and you know, go into it? Let's get started.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I think all of us here at Different Travel, very much a large part of travel is the food and the experiences of that. And it's not just as simple as that, it's the whole culture, isn't it? It's everything behind it and what what identifies a country or a region and the people in it. What people eat and drink is so much a big part of that. We generally will love the chance to be adventurous, to try something a little bit different, to try things, either totally different things or something cooked in a very different way to what you might have at home. And generally, I think most of our people who come on our trips do enjoy that element. I mean, there are some people that are a little bit apprehensive maybe beforehand, if you know, maybe people think they don't like spicy food or think they don't like anything sort of that's not English, but actually, you know, once they've sort of been enticed to try it, we generally find people go away with really, really great memories of all the amazing food they've had on these trips. So yeah, I think, you know, what we're going to do to begin with is we're each going to sort of have a little chat about sort of our favourite meals or meal experiences maybe that we've had on all the different trips we've done over the years with Different Travel. So Jill, do you want to start us off with some of your memories?
Yes, of course, thanks. Yeah, I think what's so interesting travelling to all these countries is the passion that the people have, the locals have for their food. And it's something that doesn't maybe come that naturally to a lot of British people, but I know the four of us certainly have a passion for the food. And so to experience it firsthand from the locals cooking it is just it's just priceless, really. And I've been lucky enough, most of the trips I do, and some of you listening have been on trips with me or watching, hopefully, the project trips with ActionAid are a real proper experience in local food, because we're usually out somewhere really rural, in a village community, and with these trips we always make sure that we involve the local people, and so we have a team of people cooking for us at lunchtime, and often it's just like eating in a restaurant at lunchtime. It's just amazing, and what's good is it's the local people cooking it. We're making sure they've got work. We're putting money back into the community, and we're buying the products from the local community. And you know, once they learn that we're really willing to try different things, they experiment. I know in Cambodia, for example, we were in a very small village, and they made us a red ant curry on the last day, and they went out collecting red ants from the local community, from the roadside, really. So that was interesting. So there's been all sorts of different experiences, and it is nice, because when they learn that you're really enthusiastic and you really enjoy the food, then they really enjoy doing it for you, and yeah, that's really special. So I mean, ActionAid projects have been all over the place, Vietnam, Cambodia, Mozambique. Mozambique was another place that really surprised me. The lunches weren't so good, to be fair. We had packed lunches in Mozambique, which were quite interesting. Cold, warm, hot chips every day, mostly cold chips every day. But in the evening, food was amazing. Local seafood. I mean, it was just incredible. We had lobster one night, I remember, and yeah, so full of surprises, really.
Wow.
Yeah, so yes, Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, I think, you know, quite often sort of what the local teams managed to come up with in the most bizarre, remote, rural locations. When you think, my goodness, how I struggled to do that in a fully equipped kitchen with the sort of down the road. How on earth they produced this sort of over a campfire,
over a log fire. Yes.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, I think we've probably touched on this one before, but I think Morocco has to just be, some of the food that they conjure up for us in the middle of the desert is just absolutely incredible. And the way they present it as well, it's all so beautifully presented. I think if you can see this photo here, one of the highlights of our Morocco Sahara trip is when they cook the local Berber bread in the sand. And so they'll make the fire and then they'll cook the bread in the embers, and then there's nothing better than just sitting around the campfire eating this bread that's literally still warm from where it's been freshly cooked. It's just sort of it's just what they come up with. I mean, another one that springs to mind is on the on our Zambezi canoeing trips that we did out in Zambia. So again, you've maybe been travelling down the river for sort of 3 or 4 days and carrying everything in these canoes, and then they'll sort of create this beautiful sort of 3-course meal with mountains of sort of vegetables that have been baked in the fire and a meat stew, and they just sort of conjure it up out of thin air, really.
Yeah. What about breakfast on the Zambezi? Do you remember waking up to the smell of breakfast cooking?
Absolutely.
Proper cooked breakfast.
And cooking, like literally cooking the eggs over the open fire, and the bank where you've got toes watching in that direction, elephants watching in the other direction. Nothing like that. Amazing, isn't it? I mean, I think actually that's some of it, isn't it? Sometimes it is the setting of these meals as well. It's just, it's like we all say in the UK, going on a picnic, the food type is 10 times nicer than when you're sat at your kitchen table. Talking of picnics, the best picnic I think for me probably has to be on our Trek the Alps trip up in France. I know, Lexi, you've done that one as well, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Oh, this array. I mean, so in the morning you all literally, they spread everything out and you each grab a big block of cheese or a lump of meat or some baguettes and you all throw it in your backpack, and then it all gets spread out on this blanket at the top of a mountain somewhere. And you're just feasting, and being French, it's all brilliant local, it's not sort of mass-produced whatever from the supermarket. It's all local regional cheeses and meats and freshly baked bread. It's just amazing.
Something I'll add
for lunch. We really should.
Something I was just going to say to add to that as well. One of the things that I loved so much about that trek was the I'm just showing a picture here now of the fresh raspberries that grow along the trail. So as you're walking along, and as you're trekking, there's just fruit growing wild, and you can pick these amazing fresh raspberries as you're trekking along, and strawberries sometimes as well. And that kind of adds a little bit to it as well. It's sort of a treat that you're not expecting. It's nature's sweets, isn't it, that you get to enjoy. So you have this amazing picnic with cheese and bread, and then a dessert of fresh raspberries that you've picked from the bush, which is just spectacular as well. And as well, I think that particular trip for me, it's the scenery while you're having your lunch as well is quite special. So I'm just going to try and share a picture here of one of our picnic lunches that we took with a view over Mont Blanc. You're sitting there having your picnic, looking at the mountains. There's nothing like it. It's such a great way to enjoy a picnic, and a really, really special experience. And something else, actually, while we're kind of thinking about it, you mentioned about the fresh produce and it being local and everything. I'm a big cheese fan, and the final night, the option of having a nice fondue is very, very tempting as well. I don't think I've ever eaten so much cheese in one sitting. Here's a picture just here of the delights of the fondue. It's absolutely gorgeous and a real highlight, a nice way to celebrate the end of your trek.
Lovely. Yeah. Confident in the knowledge that you've burnt off all the calories from the trek.
Exactly.
What you want, which is incredible.
That's it. Yeah, definitely.
I think that makes you eat more. You kind of like, I'm working for this lunch. I can do that. Certainly on the projects, it's like, what time's lunchtime? Yes, I'm going to sit down, and you do feast like kings. And like Jill mentioned, it's the locals love to share what they have. Like, I just remember in Cambodia being sat there, and the chef there, I think we've got a picture, haven't we, Lexi?
Yeah, I'm just sharing that now.
Me and her. And because I've got certain intolerances and I can't eat certain things, she'd always make me a little special dish and bring it over to me and say, that's just for you. I'm like, don't share it. And I'm like, and everyone else is around the table looking at me going, what are you having? I'm like, nope, this is mine. But yeah, the food was absolutely incredible in Cambodia, and you know it's made with such love as well. And
like I said, the more appreciative you are, the more they want to do for you, and they love that. They love that positive feedback.
Absolutely, and it's such amazing food as well, like you say, restaurant quality food, while you're in the middle of nowhere, sat there in your building gear. It's almost fine dining while you're covered in mud.
There's
and the evening meals are incredible as well. Jill, do you remember that restaurant we went to in Cambodia, the Rondang? And it's run by they train street children to come and work at the restaurant. But the food there, I have to say, it was incredible.
Yeah.
I think it makes it more special, doesn't it? When you know that you're kind of involved in a good cause as well. So it's not just about amazing cuisine.
Even more excuses to eat more.
Exactly.
There's a few places around the world. Also, we do very much try and include those kind of community enterprise kind of restaurants where we can. I remember one that I went to in India that was like a cafe basically run by women who had experienced burns from like acid attacks. So, I mean, this is a way of giving them their confidence back, giving them an income, and making, I guess, their place in society more sort of socially acceptable, because, you know, Westerners were going and eating in this cafe, and rather than possibly the stigma that some of them were facing, it kind of, it was just a really great atmosphere and amazing food and a lovely coffee and everything as well. So, yeah, everyone wins, really. It's nice to do that where we can.
Definitely. You know, thinking of coffee, you've just reminded me of one of the best coffees I've ever had in my life, which is in Vietnam. Have you ever tried the egg coffee that they serve there?
I love that coffee, yeah.
Just going to share a picture of that now. If anyone's not familiar with egg coffee, it is a kind of, you can see from the picture that it's a very rich, thick, kind of milky coffee, which is made with, of course, egg, hence the name, but also condensed milk. So it's all kind of blended together and sort of makes this kind of foamy, almost dessert-like coffee drink, and it's super, super strong. The coffee kind of blows your head off, but it's so sweet and it's kind of rich. It's almost like drinking some kind of creme brulee or something. It's just amazing. And you know, all the Vietnamese coffee as well, there's lots of different ways that you can have it. You know, having it with kind of like a drip coffee with this condensed milk, which seems to be standard with it, it's such a treat. You feel like your teeth are going to fall out afterwards because there's so much sugar in it, but it's such a treat, and you know, really, really nice to kind of experience that locally grown coffee and have that full experience.
Yeah, I try and recreate that at home, but it's not.
It's never the same.
Never the same.
I'm just going to welcome a few people that have joined us on the Facebook Live. So we've got Ian, Alan, David and Lucy with us so far. Lucy has mentioned in India they managed to make a 60th birthday cake at one of the campsites. It was amazing.
I know.
That's such a great point, Lucy. I think you know, it's just amazing how, you know, you get this opportunity to have a celebration cake in the middle of, you know, a mountain range or in the middle of the desert or something like that. I think I've got some pictures that I can share of a few birthday surprises. Yep, there's one coming up now, which was in China, the Great Wall of China. One of our team members had a birthday, and this absolutely spectacular cake that you can see here, you know, decorated with, you know, lots and lots of icing, very, very sweet and sickly, but completely beautiful. And it was just presented at one of the houses that we were staying along the way in China. It was a wonderful celebration. Everyone got involved. You know, all of the locals joined in and had a slice of cake. Who doesn't love cake? So it's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, desserts are something, aren't they, on these trips that you kind of look forward to, and we have to give a mention to our favourite, that smell of the cinnamon as you're walking into Namche.
Oh yes.
Knowing there's apple pie waiting for you. I've never smelled anything so good.
It gets you through the whole of the trek knowing that you're going to stop off there again on the way back down.
Absolutely. It's just, yeah, it's kind of that treat, isn't it? That it's so simple, isn't it? But that's part of what makes these trips and traveling it so enjoyable, is that food is such a leveler. Everyone eats, and we all kind of have that in common, and it's so cultural, and it's just a simple thing that can really, really cheer you up and change the way you're feeling. So yeah, it's a really, really great way of sort of celebrating a country and getting kind of deep into the culture of it as well.
Yeah. I remember in Nepal we went out for a curry night, so it was Nepali curry, but there was everyone else had like meat dishes, or there was dishes that I couldn't necessarily eat. So the restaurant came up with this simple egg bhuna. So it's like a little egg curry, but it was incredible, and a little taste of home as well. It just reminded me of being a kid and like my grandma's cooking, and everyone's like, "Oh, can I try a bit?" And I'm like, I really don't want to share. I do share my food. I do share, but at that point it was like, oh, it was incredible. And there was another place where we went to, and it was a thali style restaurant. So there was loads of little dishes, and I'd been going veggie for the whole trip, but they found out that I could eat halal meat, so they managed to source some halal meat for me in Nepal, get it, cook it, so I could try the same food everyone else was trying. So it just felt really special, and you're part of a big group, and it's all part of sitting down with your team and eating. So they wanted me to feel even more part of that, so they kind of made a version that was for me. So yeah, it's incredible. It's just incredible.
That's so indicative of how they are. You say they just want everybody to experience this food, and obviously we do have various sort of different dietary requirements, or sort of whether it's different preferences or medical requirements. But our local teams, without exception, just go so far out of the way to make sure everybody is getting some delicious food, don't they? Not just one thing and the same thing every day, but sort of variety and different things. So yeah, it always amazes me how well they do.
And also they're very switched on with regards to like celiac, and they're very switched on and very, very careful.
I think that's
with every restaurant.
I think that's a concern for people who have food intolerances or allergies or requirements. When you go on certain trips, you think, well, will there be anything suitable for me to eat? Am I going to get sustenance throughout this trip? But first trip I was on, I was a little bit apprehensive. What am I going to eat? I'm just going to be like munching on salad for the whole week. But no, it's incredible how caring everyone is, and making sure it's just not an issue at all. As long as we know in advance and it can be arranged, it's doable. I don't think anything is impossible.
There was a recent trip to Rwanda, where we were really out in the country at a school, and we had one celiac with us, and the extent the kitchen, when I say the kitchen, it was cooking out of doors on a couple of wood stoves, but sometimes they would give us fried food that had been dipped in flour, and they would give just for this one person. They'd cook it without the flour especially, and she had too much to eat really. But they catered for her every day in that way. That, no, this is your bit, these are your dishes. Amazing. And it's worth touching on, when I say almost too much to eat, sometimes, they are a little ambitious the first couple of days we're there, and we hate to waste food. And so we then say, no, smaller portions and everything, but anything that's left over, obviously, our local team will be given for their families and everything. Nothing goes to waste at all. But we try and encourage them after a couple of days just to cook a bit less.
It's a happy problem.
Yeah, it is a happy problem. But rather than being wasteful, or make sure that someone gets fed with it.
Yeah.
But you never go hungry.
Something you mentioned, Rubia, which I think is, quite important, and something that people don't often expect on these treks, particularly, when you're in a really remote place and, everything else, is the taste of home that you mentioned. And it's amazing some of the treats that you can get when you are, like I say, up a mountain or in the middle of the desert, which is a little taste of home. There's some fantastic things, like pizza nights and pasta. Chips seems to be one of those things that is a common.
It's a universal dish, isn't it? Wherever you go, you'll always find a plate of chips.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just sharing a picture here of some of the chips that we had on the Great Wall of China. They even provided ketchup to go with it, which was just amazing. But eating chips with chopsticks is something that I've never done before. That was quite an experience. Really, really special. You know, some of the meals, it's just, you know, especially if you're doing kind of a really hard trip, like you say, or if you're doing a build and you're kind of tired, sometimes just having that kind of that meal that's a bit familiar can just really perk you up a bit and kind of give you that energy to keep on going as well. Certainly, like we said about the apple pie in Nepal, that's one of them that really kind of does it. It's a great thing.
I remember it was in Vietnam when we were on a build, and there was local stalls, not shops, and we made fresh lime sodas, and we bought the stall out of limes.
Oh wow!
And then our team made sugar syrup, you know, and just made a fresh lime soda, which is so thirst quenching. But every day she was very happy, this lady. She'd pile her stall with limes, and we'd come down and buy a couple of dozen or whatever. Brilliant.
I think actually that's sort of something else when you get a chance to get involved yourself, because on quite a few of our trips you do have that opportunity to try a little bit of the local cooking yourself. So in Vietnam we often have an occasion you get a chance to make spring rolls, for example, or in Nepal sometimes we've had groups that have gone and made momos. It's not necessarily a big, you know, like spending half a day on a cookery class or anything. It's just a little extra before the evening meal. You'll all sit around together and have a chance to just to learn something a bit new and try it out for yourself, and always looking for the competition if you've got the neatest spring rolls or what have you. But it's good fun as well. It's a way of getting involved, isn't it?
Definitely. And you know, one of the things that I remember as well very fondly from Vietnam is we were walking again through a small village area, and there was a woman selling, we didn't know what it was, but she was selling something that there was a big queue of local people wanting to buy it. So we asked our guide, you know, what are they buying? And she was a snail seller. So you know, it's there's a lot of kind of French influences in Vietnamese cuisine. And I said, you know, could we buy some and try them? And we went over and we bought a bag of snails and took them back to our our stilt house, and our wonderful hosts cooked them for us with lemongrass and garlic, and we had the opportunity to try fresh snails, which was an absolute delicacy. You know, you pay a fortune in a restaurant for that. And I'm just showing a picture here now. They don't look very appetizing, I admit, but absolutely delicious, and a really great opportunity to kind of support the local economy and to really learn about, you know, the culture as well. So fantastic opportunity.
There are places, aren't there, where things are considered a delicacy which might not be suited to our Western tastes. So
Yes.
in the restaurant I mentioned in Cambodia, they had a giant fish bowl full of tarantulas, for crispy tarantulas, and I was like, don't think that's for me, but yeah.
I have got a picture of that, and I will just give you a couple of seconds warning before I show that, just in case you want to look away. It is pictures of tarantulas. I'm just going to show it now so you have a chance to look away. I'll let you know when it has disappeared from the screen.
My hand is there for scale, so I
Yeah.
get the fingers in there so you can see just how big they are.
So
I know we had a couple of trips in Cambodia, because it is a thing in Cambodia, and that's almost been like an extra challenge element that the participant had done to raise more sponsorship. So you've raised your sponsorship for the trek or the cycle ride, but then you go on Facebook and say, look, I'm thinking about this. Who will give me, you know, £10, £20? If I hit £500, I'll eat this spider. And people do it. It's a great way of raising more money for the charity.
Well, they actually sell them as roadside snacks at the service stations. I remember our bus stopping off, a great big stack of sticky tarantulas ready to eat. A couple of them bought one.
Yeah, a few people did. I stuck to little quail eggs. Oh my god. It's like, think mini eggs, like the chocolate mini eggs.
Yeah.
But it's not chocolate, the quail eggs, and they just came in a bag.
Wow.
So I was just sat there peeling quail eggs and popping them. It was amazing. It was amazing.
You know, that
No, I couldn't eat a spider because I really do have a bit of a phobia about that. But I did try the crickets. I don't know if there's a photo, or we might have shown that already.
there is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we had crispy crickets in Vietnam again. This was, and again they were made into spring rolls. So when you just looked at them on their own, they were looking appetizing. But once it was all wrapped up in a spring roll with a bit of chili and vegetables and lemon, it was just like a really nice crunchy spring roll. They were nice. Yeah. Great tip.
Jill, you remembered you mentioned about kind of roadside snacks and sticky tarantulas and things like that. Something that again I remember from one of the trips that I've done in Iceland was a typical Icelandic treat, which you wouldn't necessarily think as being kind of cultural cuisine, but in fact hot dogs, would you believe, are kind of the national snack of Iceland. So just showing a picture here of a typical hot dog. They're very, very cheap, but they are delicious. You've got beautiful fresh bread hot dog, various different sauces that you can put on it. This particular one that I had was wrapped in bacon, so it's kind of like a pig in blanket. And you can find those kind of every single road stop in Iceland. They tend to be the snack of choice, which is really nice. Which is funny because Iceland again is a fantastic country for cuisine, especially if you are a meat eater and a fish eater. With it being a small island, a lot of their agriculture and their farming is done very much locally. So typically the lamb, for example, that they eat, they would the lambs would be born and they'd be kind of left to roam freely for 6 months in the mountains, eating flowers and grass and all sorts of things. So completely free range, and then they're collected in, and then have this amazing fresh meat, which is really, really special and tastes delicious. And of course fish, being an island, they've got amazing fishing there, so it's a really, really kind of beautiful local cuisine that you get there, and just beautifully prepared. I think for me as well, one of the things that's so great about the treks that we do in Iceland is that you have this opportunity to get involved with the preparation as well. So it's not just kind of being waited on, you're all kind of helping with chopping veg or setting the table or washing up or whatever it might be, so it kind of feels a bit more like a full experience. And the food there is so fresh. Like I said, it's a real full kind of joyful moment. And one of the things as well that I can kind of just remember so clearly is it's sub-0 degrees or very, very cold, and you have a picnic outside and there's snow on the ground around you, and you've got these big flasks of hot chocolate or coffee, and it's just that kind of bizarre thing of having a picnic outside when you've got your gloves on and your woolly hat and your down jacket and things like that. It's a really, really special experience, and it kind of gives that something extra to the challenge that you wouldn't necessarily think of when you're signing up for a trek in Iceland, for example.
It's quite interesting in the Sweden trek as well, isn't it? The Arctic.
Absolutely.
Challenge.
Yeah, so same kind of thing there. You are literally cooking for each other in a group. So the first night that you arrive, you will kind of divide up into pairs, and you will take to the kitchen, and it's a very, very basic kitchen. There's no electricity. You are cooking by candlelight, which is very romantic. And you prepare a meal for the rest of your team with the ingredients that are prepared. I'm just sharing some pictures here of one of the teams that we took out last year. You can see them there in the kitchen, cooking by headlight. It was very, very fun, and a lot of laughs going on. And it's amazing as well what people come up with. You can see this picture here. The lads had decided to cook potato dauphinoise for us in the middle of the Swedish Arctic, and they even had a blowtorch to make the cheese crispy on top of the potatoes. So it was really, really special. And the kind of things that people were coming up with. So this one you can see here, meatballs with some tomato sauce and some wonderful cheese. Swedish meatballs, of course. Then there was the stir fries that we had at lunchtime. This one was a moose and red mixed pepper stir fry. And then the celebratory meals as well. When you're there in this wonderful cabin and you are eating your meals as a team by candlelight, I think there's something very special about that. And being that kind of the team experience, I think that's just something that we haven't really touched on yet, is when you're sitting around at a table with your teammates, you have an opportunity that you wouldn't normally have. So often these days you don't have a sort of typical family meal around a table anymore. It's kind of sat down watching the telly, having a meal and kind of getting on with it. But you have that really amazing experience to share a meal with people that you maybe don't know very well at that point. Sharing the culture, sharing stories, and sitting there and being with people. I don't know about you guys. What do you think about that? You experience that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think it's sort of often at the time when all the local team sort of are sat with you as well, and it's that chance to really share with them. They're obviously busy on the trek doing their job, leading you and looking after you, but then when you sort of sat down in the evening, they're kind of part of your group, and it's great, isn't it? Just that opportunity to sit and share, and particularly, like I know you mentioned at the end of a trek, so on all of our trips, we always have some kind of celebratory meal at the end. Now, sometimes that might be going out to a local restaurant if we're back in a town or a city. Other times it might be you're still sort of there on a campsite or in a log cabin somewhere. But the sort of thing that you share is that you're all then together celebrating what you've been through, what you've achieved, what you've experienced, and it's that sort of just a chance to really let your hair down, I guess, knowing that you've kind of achieved it and succeeded, and before you go home.
It is special. I know on a lot of the trips I've been, it's really quite lovely to find something special to do. You would have been there a week, and you can get a feel for the sort of places and what might work on the last night. And I know we've had some fabulous last evenings, and it's always quite special. People will get up and say something. It's often quite emotional as well. People are telling you what they've got from the week, and obviously spontaneously. And I find the last night really special, and I love the challenge maybe of finding something special to do on that night, where the environment is a bit of a wow factor as well. So
I remember our last night in Cambodia, and we had a firefly tour on the boat, so we went out and watched the sunset, and then went to this amazing I think we ate at the hotel that night.
Yeah, but it was a lovely setting, that restaurant.
It was beautiful. And the local people who had been with us, all the local ActionAid people had joined us that evening, and it was just such a lovely, lovely atmosphere. And it was the last night before everyone some people came home, some people did an extension, but that was the last night of the whole team together, and it was a highlight of the trip, honestly. It was incredible.
We've got a few comments coming through on Facebook, sort of echoing that kind of thing. A lot of people have been saying that they're hungry. Apologies for that. We did warn you. We've had a couple of really great comments from Jeanette. She's asking, do you remember Steve's chocolate birthday cake in Mozambique? It melted in the heat. Does that ring a bell?
Hello, Jeanette.
Alan Henderson, who has said Jill suggested a spicy soup for breakfast in Cambodia, and it was fantastic.
Thank you, Alan.
That's one of those things as well. Breakfast is, I'm not really a breakfast person. I don't tend to eat until lunchtime, and when you're in different country, I think experiencing the breakfast items is one of the most kind of enlightening things. And I do like to try everything that I possibly can. So one of my most memorable breakfasts was actually in China. I'm just going to try and bring a picture up of that here. It was a kind of like a buffet style breakfast in the hotel that we stayed in, and I've just got the picture here, and this is a typical kind of example of what they had on offer. So they had red velvet cheesecake, bacon, poached eggs, green beans, chocolate cake, bean sprouts and dumplings as just a kind of a starter, and then it kind of developed on from there. There were salads and all sorts of things, and that, of course, for me the best way to start the day is with a piece of cake. So that's what I did. If it's on offer for breakfast, it must be appropriate to eat it. So I tried that. It was very nice. And similarly, I mentioned Iceland. You may have seen it in the supermarkets now. It's just kind of started coming in. There's a kind of thick yogurt kind of mixture. It's called skyr, and it's this high protein yogurt which is really, really kind of healthy and low fat but high in protein. And in Iceland, what they do is they take this really low fat, healthy breakfast item, and then they mix chocolate in with it. So you've got this amazing kind of this treat, which it kind of feels like, you know, it's not too unhealthy. You've got that kind of like healthiness to it, but it's got this chocolate mix in it. I'm just sharing a picture of it here now. You can see the bowl in the foreground there. It's just a big bowl of chocolate delight, which is a wonderful way to start the day.
I remember noodles and croissants in Cambodia.
Yes.
But freshly baked, true French. I think it was a French expat who married a Cambodian, and obviously with the French history in Cambodia, it's a very Cambodian thing. But then you've got noodles, and they were incredible.
Yeah, great breakfast.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Just it's got to be a little bit different, and that's what makes it, you know, part of the fun. And like I think if it's on offer, you know, when in Rome, you've got
to try everything. Until you've tried it, you just don't know. It might be the best thing that you've ever tasted, so you've got to try it.
Exactly.
We mentioned India.
Oh, Indian breakfasts are the best.
We haven't mentioned India. Yeah, Indian breakfast, Indian everything.
All the veggie curries and breads and patties and dals and me.
Street food.
Yeah.
I think it's important to say with Indian food, it's not just curry.
Yes.
There's so much more. I think when people say I don't like Indian food, it's like there's so much out there. You can't. And even the curries, there's about 1 million different varieties, and depending on which part of the country you're in.
So regional they're cooking.
Exactly.
Maybe some people are maybe intolerant to spicy food. There's still so many curries that are just not at all spicy, just different flavours, fragrances in them.
And it's so surprising, people like vegetarians, vegans. It's so easy to adapt in these countries. I think it's going to be really difficult. And also, even gluten intolerant. You know, in these places, there's the chickpea flour, there's rice noodles. It's very, very easy to alter the menu for different dietary requirements.
Yeah.
So easier than you'd imagine.
Definitely, and in some of the places as well that you wouldn't necessarily think. So we mentioned earlier about the Alps, which is, when you think of the Alps, you think of kind of very meat and cheese heavy types of things. But we had, I think on my last trip, there were 2 or 3 vegans and a few vegetarians, and the food that they had, there was almost more options for them than there were for the meat eaters, but you know, still no one went hungry, and the quality of it as well. It's not kind of just a sort of well, we'll just give you a salad kind of thing. It's really well thought out and very, very considerate. So, you know, a lot of the time.
Because often in the UK, it can be a bit of an afterthought to have that vegan item on the menu or a gluten-free item, and often you'll go to a place after place and it'll be the same option, and so boring. And it's not like that. They go to, as we started off by saying, they go to so much pain and effort to make sure that you all have this amazing experience of their food and their culture that really just doesn't happen. You get spoiled for choice over there.
Yeah, I'm just sharing.
We could go on for hours talking about it.
I'm just showing a quick picture here of one of the breakfasts that we had in Vietnam, and again this is sort of touching on dietary requirements. The pancakes that you can see here were made with rice flour, so they were more you know, accessible for people that had gluten intolerances and so on, and they were the best pancakes I've ever eaten. And again, maybe it's because they were freshly baked, you know, over a fire, and you know, you're in the middle of this wonderful small village, and you know, it's fresh lemon juice, you know, all that kind of stuff, really, really beautiful. Yeah, you can't really go far wrong when it comes to the food.
You've got me thinking about dosa for breakfast.
Brilliant. We've got a few more comments that have just come in on Facebook. Alan has mentioned dragon eyeballs in Cambodia.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about that.
It's just fruit. But the kids used to come running through, because we were building on a school build. The local kids in the village, we were there all the time. So these kids had come, and it was like a branch of these, like, they taste almost like lychees, I'd say, but a little bit sweeter. And the seeds are smaller, so there's more fleshiness. And they kind of grow on branches. So these kids are just running around with these branches, and we're like, what are they? And like, dragon eyeball fruit, and we're like,
wow.
So they were good. They were really good.
And Lucy's also just reminiscing. I remember when we were in the last hotel in India and they had bacon. That sounds like quite a treat as well.
There was a mass rush down to breakfast that morning. I think someone went down early and put it on the WhatsApp group. They've got bacon. Everybody had descended on the hotel buffet for bacon. It's funny. That takes us home, like you mentioned.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we've been chatting, would you believe, for 40 minutes. I think we probably better wrap it up. Been getting carried away, apologies for that. What we're going to ask you guys to do, if you want, is add your favourite photographs of foodie experiences that you've had when you've been travelling in the comments. And what we're going to do is, similar to a few weeks ago, we're going to do a competition. And the photograph that is the most inspiring to us, maybe the best scenery, the most delicious looking food, that one will be featured on our Facebook page for the next couple of weeks. So pop your entries in the comments and we will select the best picture. Be as creative as you like, whether it's great scenery, as I say, or something delicious. Feel free to pop your pictures in there below. Sarah, do you want to just quickly cover what we're going to talk about in next week Facebook Live?
Yes, so next week we're going to get back to a slightly more serious topic, but we're going to talk about the current situation and what's sort of changing and evolving. I mean, obviously you're probably all aware in the news at the moment there's talk of things, travel opening up a little bit, and we're all still very positive about some of the trips that we've got planned for towards the end of this year, sort of October, November time. But we are sort of in that process at the moment of travelling in the modern world is going to be a slightly different experience to what it was before. So we're just really going to run through with you all the sort of steps that we're taking as a company with our partners on the ground and everybody to ensure the safety of our groups and that we can carry on doing these amazing trips later this year and in the future. So we'll be covering a little bit about that, and again, any sort of questions that you've got about it, any concerns, any thoughts, either feel free to email us beforehand and we can try and cover it in our talk, or of course listen and comment on the day. So yeah, chatting a little bit about that at the same time next week.
Amazing, thank you so much. Well, again, thank you to everybody that's joined us on Facebook, and apologies once again for making everybody hungry. It is now almost lunchtime, so we hope you have a wonderful lunch. Again, feel free to pop your lunch pictures in the comments if you want to and make us jealous. Thanks so much to you guys for sharing your memories, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks a lot, bye.